Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Dr. Cammy Goes Keto, where I'm here with Mike Collins, the sugar-free man who runs Quit Sugar Summit and has all kinds of wonderful conferences that go on and summits that go on and a sugar detox challenge. That's a 30-day detox challenge. That's absolutely wonderful. So look that up if you need help getting off your sugar. And when I started going keto, starting the keto lifestyle, I really realized I was having issues with sugar and that this was a problem for me. And I've really had a hard time coming off of it. And before we started rolling the video, Mike and I were talking about my issues and how I still will binge. I'm doing binge eating still. And I did it the other day when I went to weigh in with Jeff, even though I had lost weight. And I did it the next day when I went and saw my mother, even though everything went great. And she was this really sweet, nice lady who doesn't remember me. It still triggered me. And so we're talking a little bit about how I am and how sensitive I am. And we're talking about how when you get that one little bit, that first little taste is all that you need to get yourself going. And I was in the grocery store the other day and my voice in my head was saying, well, if you get the sweet relish and the dill relish, but you just use a third sweet relish and 2/3 dill relish in your tuna fish, then you're not going to have any problems with the sugar. And I didn't believe that, know that I would have the problems because eventually it would be half sweet relish and then it would be 2/3 sweet relish. And then, so any little way that it can try and sneak itself in to my life is what I still hear. And I did run a report that I'm on a GL1, I'm on Zepbound, and I'm up to 10.5 milligrams today, trying to get myself to quit doing this binge eating. And it's definitely helping me. There's no doubt that it's helping me with my appetite and with my ability to be successful. And I have been successful over the last couple of days with some issues that I've been encountering. Like I didn't buy the sweet relish at the grocery store and some other things that are going on that, and it's just like part of me says it's such a little thing, but part of me knows it's such a big thing. Because if I can do that and then do it again and then do it again and then do it again, it's building upon itself. But I wanted you to talk, Mike, about how, it's just that little teaspoon of relish that gets in there and gets you going, because sometimes that will get me going to a binge. And then sometimes that will just kind of keep me streamlining just a little bit throughout the days where I don't really binge, but I'll still eat like a little bit of sugar here and there and here and there. And I can see that that's really hindering my progress in getting off the sugar, obviously, and in losing weight and getting healthier metabolically.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. And thanks for adding the weight loss with the coach and then the visit to the mother. These are two things that I'll come back to in just a second, but that's important information. So what we were talking about is your level of sensitivity, likely brought on by decades of abuse. We were talking about an older construct that it's still around and people talk about it a little bit, but it was more popular 20 years ago or 15, 20 years ago, which is called the concept of a progressive illness. And a progressive illness means that even if you quit using sugar or alcohol, it was originally talked about with alcohol, is if you quit for 10 or 15 years with alcohol, you pick up just right where you left off, as if you had been drinking. We use the construct or the example of a wino, or it's a terrible term, but someone who, quits drinking for a while, or someone who has half a glass of wine and is intoxicated because they've been drinking for 30 or 40 or 50 years. But if you were to stop drinking alcohol, I've been off alcohol for 40 plus years. If I were to start, it would be like I never stopped. And half a beer in or half a drink in, I'd be intoxicated, just like the street bum appears to be. They get alcohol, they get drunk so easily. With the sugar, the main thing is your sensitivity now. Your body is not looking for the second one. It's always looking for the first one. And just a little bit in half a teaspoon of relish will get you started. And, there needs to be that 30 to 90 day complete abstinence in order to heal that up and give you more time to think it all the way through. So when you bring in it's so interesting because that went right to it as soon as you said it. that you lost weight with the trainer after the weigh-in. And so we have trouble with the positive, like addicts have trouble with the positive. And then you visited your mother and it went okay. There was no like upset or whatever, but it was still the onslaught of thoughts and feelings about, her behavior when you were young. I mean, all this is very logical as far as like explainable about how you are deal with things, right? And the Zepbound, it's still kind of experimental as that it will quiet the noises. Like a lot of people are taking GLP-1s, they stop gambling, they stop drinking, whatever. And people are amazed. And I believe there is probably some efficacy or some, worth research. But if I said a million times, in 100 years from now, with the advent of AI, with the advent of diagnostic tools, we are going to look back on this era of about 100 or 150 years as the guinea pig era. And the guinea pig era is where humans were tested about all of these things, from sugar to GLP-1s and all the drugs in between, all the SSRIs and alcohol even. It's going to look like we're going to look back in that history and time. Our grandchildren are going to say, man, they used to, like, they did all those experiments, so we don't have to, right? And so, yeah, I mean, you're doing really good. And, you just have to kind of, I think there might be some tools you're not. I read a book this week called Fawning. You and I got to talk about it either after or later, but there are some tools that you're just not using, which is reaching out to people when you want to use number one. Like there's so many people, myself included, who would take your calls, take your texts, and walk you off that cliff. And the reason being is because your body wants that old soothing that, you can't fight the biology. You're not far enough away yet, 30, 60, 90 plus, hopefully days away where it's just like, I'm not going there. Your brain, I've said it many, many times, like people who are hijacked, captured by the frontal cortex, they do not have the ability to make rational enough decisions to fight their limbic response, that little bit of soothing. And I swear to you, this is the biggest research project I've ever undertaken, or thought process problem I've ever undertaken, is exactly what's happening to you. Just a little bit, just a touch. It does one of two things, or both. It drives you to more, or just a little bit, as you had mentioned, you were able to kind of maintain a little bit through the day and just have a little, I call it taking the edge off. There's a little couple other calls, or things you could talk about like that, but that just a touch. And the crazy part, the thought problem part, is that it does not give a real buzz like a drink would or a drug would. Somehow just soothe things. Everything's right with the world. Like that first cup of coffee with sugar in the morning, where people talk about this 30-minute time period where they're quiet, they're on their porch, or they're in their kitchen and they're sitting. Everything's right with the world. And then they chase that buzz for the whole day. Is sugar and caffeine.
The whole month or the whole, I'll wait. What it does is it just kind of keeps me on hold.
Yeah.
It keeps me on hold kind of
Good way to put it.
until the next binge is coming. And if I talk myself out of it, then my body, my brain tells me that it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. Like the other day I was in the grocery store and there were things there that, have things in there that I'm not eating. And my body was, and I even heard myself say, well, just go ahead and give in because you're never going to be successful. And I heard that and I thought,
Thanks for that honesty.
I thought it's not true. My voices tell me all kinds of things that I'm realizing now are not true. They're just bullshit.
Yeah.
And when I was young, when you're 4 or 5, 6 or whatever, you don't know any different. You believe it.
Yeah.
But now that I'm older and I'm getting a little bit, and my appetite is down. The cravings are better. The voice is slowing down. The appetite's down. And I'm thinking, that's just a fabrication. It's a total lie.
Yeah, I mean, look, I hate they got a lot of phrases in recovery programs and stuff, but there is some level of muscling it that you have to do to even. I've been using this phrase lately. It's a resurrected AA phrase, but even if your ass falls off, you don't use sugar. You just don't do it for 90, 60, or 90 days so that you can get that healing of the frontal cortex, of the internal systems, the dopamine. You're building new neural pathways. Because right now, all you're doing is putting that small bit, let's use that relish, continue on that theme. You're a little bit in that old neural pathway, and then you're off to the races. But if you were building that new neural pathway and you needed that soothing, you needed to do some exercise or a walk to get it, and you had done it for 45 or 60 straight days, then you would go for the walk when you had the feeling, right? You would go for the walk. And that it's not a huge switch over. It's not a huge um transition. I always use the one with the dogs. Like people are, they have a craving, they leash up the dog and they go for a walk. They have a big glass of water, they leash up the dog and they go for a walk. And then about 45 or 60 days later, they have an argument with husband and they don't even remember. Like it's blurry and foggy and they're out on the walk. It's like the new neural pathway has taken over. It's like it's changed the behavior. It's changed the thoughts. It's changed what you do for self-soothing, right? And that's the magic of the little bit of muscling, don't use unless your ass falls off, building a new neural.
Okay, so let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So you have a craving, okay? Like I'm craving sugar, okay? There's probably something, there's a feeling behind it, right? Something happened. Sometimes I can pinpoint it and divert myself, but there's a feeling there. And so I want to soothe myself by eating the sugar. And so instead of soothing myself, I go for a walk. So my question is, do you have to, because I always think you have to figure out the feeling. You have to get deep there. You have to understand what it is that's causing you to have this feeling, because if you can nip it in the root, you won't have those feelings anymore. You won't have those cravings. But maybe at the beginning, you don't have to get so overwhelmed with getting to the root cause of everything. You can just say, eliminate the feeling by going on a walk. And as you go on a walk, that feeling will dissipate, or maybe you'll be able to work through it on your walk. Or, do you have to like address every single issue? Because I think that's part of it.
Excellent question. And I would recommend to you and all of your audience to read a book called Fawning that just came out on September 9th by Dr. Ingrid Clayton. And she's literally developing new language for this process that we're talking about, okay? From the days of codependency and the days of people pleasing and stuff. There's fight, flight, freeze, and fawning. And a lot of people have never really talked about fawning, which in the old days was called people pleasing. But the answer to your question lies in not, I wish I had remembered this and said it first, but it's not in, because largely sometimes that feeling is unconscious, okay? That feeling is, you don't know that what's going on. You are just having the craving. So I would suggest before the walk in the early days, a large glass of water, drink the whole thing and sit down. And Ingrid talks about this too. Drop into your body and don't try. And the answer to your question is, I believe now with her work and her new language, and is you don't have to relive the experience. You just have to identify it in your body. Okay. You just have to identify where it's coming from, what it is, so that you can recognize it the next time. Right. And this is the subtle switch in both language and, because I had been asking, and this, I have been asking this question forever. Do you have to experience and process out all of that stuff that you're going through, your mother stuff, your weight stuff,
All the trauma.
that shame, all that trauma? And I think the answer is leaning towards no. I think it's leaning towards no, but it is leaning towards identifying it, taking it out of the unconscious, sitting down, and where is it in my body? Where is it? Uh, what does it feel like coming up, and how is it attached or identified or hooked into the desire for a sugar product. And it's when you can figure out that connection and identify it in the body, then you're in a place where you start to recognize, because largely, and you know this, and we've talked about it, we are disconnected. We're in our mind a lot, and it's not, we're not in our body finding out what that feeling is. And if we can do that, then we can move forward. And it's an ongoing process. I mean, I'm way still into it, probably now readjusting a lot of things I did do because of this new look and new language of, identifying complex trauma or complex PTSD.
But, creating those new neural pathways in your brain, right? It
Yeah.
seems to me like you have to learn how to connect what's going on physically,
Yes.
into your brain, because I will have, like, in my solar plexus, I'll get this little, like a knife stabbing and twisting the knife. I'll get a little like a little twinge there, and I'll be able to feel that. I'll be able to notice that. But sometimes it's kind of like Oprah Winfrey's book, What Happened to You?
Yes.
you know, she talks about how you need to go and figure out, not what's wrong with you, but what happened to you. Because when you look at what happened to you, any person, any normal person, when that kind of stuff happens to them, is going to behave like that, a certain way, right? So there's nothing that you're doing wrong. There's nothing that, and all of us pretty much have experienced trauma growing up because we were raised by humans, and humans are imperfect. And so all of us have our little trauma and our little quibbles that we need to work through. But trying to the way your body, because the body keeps the score, right? And I think that we don't know yet, but I think that on the cellular level, things change, and on a cellular level when your body experiences trauma.
Yes. And that's
And
that's the key to it, that you are never out of that, until you recognize it and understand where it's coming from. Largely, if you're disconnected from your body and you're thinking about it. She talks about in the book, like you and I, we know everything about our inner child and our this, that, and the other thing, but we still persist sometimes in the behaviors that we don't want.
yeah,
Yeah, no, it's really super interesting that I think the evolution of where she is in describing fawning is very similar to where we are, you and I, No Sugar Nation, a lot of, Bitten and a lot of other educators, where we are in describing recovery from sugar addiction, new languaging, new protocols that have got nothing to do with the food or the sugar, but what have to do with basically what we're having a discussion about today. And it's neat to look at the parallels in addiction recovery and addiction education moving forward.
right. But we say it's not about the food, but it kind of is about the food, because you cannot be looking at healing from an addiction if you are active in your disease. Like, you cannot be kind of drinking a few beers here and there instead of drinking a bunch of beer and
Yeah.
try to get yourself sober.
Yeah.
So, that's what I feel like I'm trying to do. I'm trying to sneak around it, right? Like, oh, let me just eat a little bit and here and there and not a lot. And then what that does is, one, prevents me from growing and healing and creating my new neural pathways, and two, sets me up for binging,
Yes.
because it's just a matter of time as I'm trickling it in until I get to it. And I think a lot of it too has to do with fear. Like, I don't know why, but I'm really afraid of looking like what's going to happen. Like, because you've said before, like, you'll pull off the sugar. You'll be like, I don't know, the longest I've gone so far is like 47 days or something. As you pull off the sugar for 60, 90 days, you start to process the stuff that you're not eating over, right?
Yes.
You start to look at, oh my gosh, and you call people and you talk to people. And I do call people, by the way. You call people, you get off the edge, they talk you off, and you do all of these things to start processing what's going on. And I'm really afraid of that. I don't know why.
Okay. Good.
Because I
Good.
kind of like to go along and say, well, look, the way I've been doing it is okay. It's adequate. I mean, I became a successful doctor and surgeon for 26 years and sent my kids through college and, supported my husband and all of his issues and, saved some for retirement and, this and this and this. And, I look at my human doingness
Yeah.
And I say, "Hey, well, I'm doing okay."
Mm.
But when I look at my human beingness, I start to convince myself that I'm okay there too. Like when I compare my relationships, when I look at relationships that other people are having in my life or around, that I just wouldn't tolerate that because I have stronger boundaries. And sometimes I'm lonely because I don't have a partner. But then I just think, well, I'd rather not have a partner than be unhappy, like a lot of people that I see in their relationships.
Right.
So like I'll find ways to justify like why I'm not in one. And I'll sit there and go, well, I'm okay. I'm okay this way. And then the sugar conversations will come in and be like, yeah, you're okay. You're okay. Go ahead and go do this. Go ahead and, eat a few pieces of that gum that has sweetener in it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
have yet
you're
to
you're
find a
bringing up a
good
couple
gum.
of addictive types of thing, and right at the beginning you said, "I find a sneaky way around it." You're using it, and that's kind of a, old behavior. Like a addict always got a way to get what they need, right? By hook or by crook, however they get it.
About how I'll just use excuses, like how I'm using a little bit, and then
Oh
I'll
yeah,
use
oh
it.
yeah, yeah, exactly. No, you were using, I'm not as bad.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
real common, my family especially. They always rail against my poor cousin Jim, who's like the black sheep, kind of drinking and drugging in his 50s, and 60s. And they're like, they can rationalize they're not that bad. You know what I mean? They can rationalize that I'm not as bad as them, or you know what I mean? It's kind of an addictive rationalization that I'm not that bad, or I'm okay. I'm doing okay. You even use those phrases. I'm doing okay. Right. And, you've got a little retirement, you made it through some stuff, you look at other people, you don't like their relation, but what that's hurting is your soul, that magical person that's in there. That's the only person it's hurts. It's not hurting them at all, or whoever. They're not even know you're thinking about it that way. So, I mean, our job together and with you now is and I don't want to get Tony Robbins' John, but is to let that magical person inside you out, you know?
Right. Overcoming the fear is what I need to do because, like, I know that I'm not at my potential. I know that I'm not, and I know that there's um like I'm very passionate about things when I get there, and I know that there's a purpose for me,
Yeah.
for like, because I'm looking at like the last third of my life, like 30, 60, 90, and I'm looking at the last third of my life and I'm like, hey, what is my purpose? I know that I want to teach people how to connect and love
Yeah.
because there's just totally not enough of that going around the world. But like, how do I do that, or what do I do? And this fear of like, I'm in my own way, my recovery and lack thereof is in the way.
Yes.
And I know that. And it's kind of surprising that I'm even saying it because
Oh, I'm
I,
glad you're saying it.
well, I know I'm not alone, right? A lot of people are out there and you're afraid to do whatever.
Yeah.
And, that fear holds you back from being your true self, your ultimate self, your expressive self, the one that your soul craves to get out.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to keep bringing up this book, but it's a very simple construct that I have known intellectually for a long time. But you're playing small so other people, and I think Marianne Williams said this, or it was often credited to Nelson Mandela. But you're playing small so other people don't feel bad or inferior. You know what I mean? And you've got to, let that out and get over that and just be yourself. And that's scary, right? It's scary. And again, it's the deeper work that is holding us back, the deeper work that is keeping us stuck, that which is, I think the Mary Ellen Williams phrase, who are you to be beautiful, gorgeous, talented?
Mm.
And why would you shrink so that other people don't feel bad? Right?
Yeah, and then she says, "Who are you not to be?"
Who are
And
you
then
not?
she says, like, "You're born in this world to shine your light, and when you
Right.
shine your light enough, that enables other people to shine their own light just
Correct.
by being in your presence."
Correct.
When my son Brandon passed away, I wrote this really cool card. I don't know if I sent you one. I think I did a long time ago. And on the back, I have that saying,
I
and I
love it.
have it from Marianne Williamson's
Yeah.
book.
But it's the same construct. I mean, it's the same thing that Ingrid is talking about in fawning, is that, we came up defending ourselves or using this people pleasing to help others, and literally help some of our enemies or people that weren't doing us any good. But we were horrified of the conflict required to express ourselves and be ourselves. So we're hidden behind this nice person persona. And that's, I see that in you, and when you let it go, some people are going to think, oh, she's a bitch, because you were just like sticking up for yourself or like asking for what you need or taking what you need if it's appropriate. And people don't think about this discussion that we're having now having anything to do with sugar. But if you want to draw it to the gigantic emotional eating half BS out there, people know that they're emotionally eating, but they don't realize the extent of it because they never get 100% abstinence. It's back to that sugar does not get the respect that a drug or alcohol would to be able to anesthetize that deeply and to block all of those things, right? And so there's a lot of holy crap at days 60 and 90 that you're having to deal with in different ways that is really the gateway, the pathway to your growth. Because for 50 years, you've anesthetized it with sugar and alcohol and relationships and whatever. And
Work.
now you have none of it. And, this kind of idea that moderation works, we pretty much covered at the beginning of this hour, is that just a little bit will set you off on a run or a binge or just keep you neutral. I think you used the word, or one of those, you keep you uh, copacetic for the day or whatever. Anyway, this has been fascinating as hell. I love where our conversations go lately because you are dead to rights honest about what's going on with you. The courage required to put this all out on the internet is helping thousands of people already, probably later tens of thousands or more.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's kind of scary. And it's interesting because the other day I put out a video. I was telling you before we started taping about bust carb myths.
Okay.
And it's creating some controversy in the comments. And so it was really interesting the way I felt about that because it increased I got some more subscribers and it increased the views
Right.
because of the comments. But then my people pleasing part was like, but then I'm not going to look good. Oh, but this, but that. And people
Mm-mm.
aren't going to like me. Oh my gosh. And then I just thought, well, bring it on. I'm just being honest and my heart is pure in that I'm trying to help other people get through what I'm struggling with because I
Okay.
know I'm not alone. And so I know that if your heart and your soul and your spirit are in the right place, then that's okay. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's been very interesting. The whole journey.
Well, as long as you look at it that optimism, that Ann Wilson Chef living in process, and that you're creating a process that includes this self-examination, this dropping into the body, this um, honesty, this such radical honesty about yourself with all the warts included, this is where people turn back. This is where they don't want to look at that stuff because it's scary.
Yeah, and I'm talking about fear. So it's going to be interesting to see how our conversations go when I stay off of this sugar for 60, 90 days and what happens.
Yeah, I think down deep, you may know there's a little bit of a freak out coming, a little bit of a, you know, whatever it is, the one time I think that I was my dark night of the soul, I call it, was after I quit flour and television, after I'd quit sugar and caffeine, and I got divorced, and I was alone in this other house, and it was a scary time. There's a lot of processing, I think, organic, natural processing that I was holding down and holding back from years of early trauma stuff. And I think intuitively you might feel, I never would have signed up for it. But you
Gee,
may,
thanks.
yeah, I would have kept doing coffee and sugar and whatever, smoking cigarettes, whatever. But I think that you may have an intuitive knowing that there's another bigger step to the journey, even than like the weight loss or the not using sugar that includes emotional processing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm glad you went through the dark night of the soul because, when you look at how many people you're helping
Yeah,
and, get
I
off of
never would have made it.
sugar.
Yeah, I never would have been the father. I never would have been able to do anything that I've done, without that. And
Yeah.
again, I would not I would not. I said, "Oh, that sounds like a good idea," you know? And I think you may have more knowledge, or the world has more knowledge, and you're a good research, more knowledge about what might be coming. I don't want to scare you or any of the audience members, but the naked work, the don't have any old behaviors, have to find new behavior. This is when I started running 12, 10, 5, 7 miles on hurt knees because I needed something. You know what I mean? I needed something.
Yeah.
And like I had never run before. I didn't run in high school. I didn't run, and I was running 5, 7 miles, and I would run hurt, and I would limp for 2 or 3 days and go right back out running, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it kind of worked, but it probably wasn't the best way to do it.
Yeah, I know, because you think also about self-preservation, right? You wanna make it through in one piece, and you wanna make it through better than you were, and,
Right.
as a mother, I think about my kids, and, they're basically grown, but you wanna be there for them in a healthy way. So, yeah, so we'll see. We'll just keep on keeping on.
Yeah, we're doing great. You're doing great for sure.
Thank you, with your help. See,
I'm
the other
I,
thing that
I'm
I'm
going
really
to a new level myself with this people pleasing. So if I appear brusque over the next couple months, or if I appear direct, or if you know what I mean?
That's okay.
I don't want to say no more Mr. Nice Guy kind of thing, but there is going to be some pendulum swing.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm sitting down.
I'm only hoping we can, for you and others, accelerate their processes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's the flip side of that is patience and grace. It's all about balance.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, everybody.
I'm not famous or have much of that, but go ahead.
Well, thanks for another episode, Mike. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. Always.
Okay, we'll continue next time, guys. Take care. Stay abstinent. Don't eat sugar.
Yeah.
Go see Mike.
It all this great discussion starts with 0 sugar.
At least for us, and
Yeah.
probably for a lot of people out there listening.
Yes.
All right, take care. Bye.